In this video, I will tell you about 10 unusual and sometimes even creepy finds of archaeologists that you will definitely like. Severed hands in Egypt, a mysterious mummy in a mine, a ritual axe, and funerary decorations of a girl. You can see all this and more in this video. Hi friend, you're on the KirTop channel. Mystery of the Etruscan tomb. A new discovery awaits us in Italy. In its central part in the city of Volchi, scientists discovered a unique Etruscan tomb of the 6th century BC, which remained untouched for a long time. Many ceramic vessels and a dish with a brazier were found in this tomb. During the excavation, scientists found 2 heavy stone slabs that covered the tomb. Behind them was a room carved into the rock where they found about 30 ceramic vessels in excellent condition. Also found in the tomb was a bronze brazier with coals and skewers on which pieces of meat remained. It is likely that a woman was buried here as no weapons were found, but a spindle was found. The remains of the woman were burned and placed in a special pot which the Etruscans used to store the ashes. The city of Volchi was a thriving center of trade and crafts until it was destroyed by Rome in 280 BC. The city fell into decay and then was abandoned. Many tombs were plundered by marauders in search of precious items. Therefore, finding an untouched tomb is a real rarity. Ancient hair. This terrible epidemic has a very long history. Various drugs have been popular for thousands of years, and in those days, millions of people around the world died from this poison. Archaeologists have found the oldest case of drug use in Europe on the island of Minorca, near Spain. This man's hair is over 3,000 years old. Scientists studying the cave of Esquerich discovered that our ancestors performed a strange ritual. The dead man's hair was cut off, dyed red, and placed in small boxes made of horn and wood. The researchers analyzed the hair using sophisticated methods and found alkaloids, scopolamine, and ephedrine, substances that cause hallucinations. It's no secret that researchers can detect drugs in human hair and nails even after months and years. Scientists think that ancient people used vision-inducing plants such as mandrake, henbane, and datura. In addition, they ate ephedra with ephedrine, a stimulant. Now we can say with certainty that psychostimulants were popular in Europe more than 3,000 years ago, and most likely created a big problem for humanity even then. Burial with headless skeletons. At the archaeological site of Vrable Velké Lehemby in Slovakia, archaeologists have discovered a terrible find. 38 people were buried in one grave, but they were all without a head. The approximate age of the burial is 5000 BC. This site appears to have been the largest early Neolithic settlement in Central Europe. In addition to the burial, the researchers identified 313 houses, 80 of which were inhabited by people at the same time. They formally divided all the buildings into 3 villages. Scientists claim that about 600 people lived in this settlement. One of the villages was surrounded by double ditches, almost 1.5 kilometers long. In this moat, archaeologists found the remains of 38 people, including a child. The bones of the buried were mixed with each other, so archaeologists had to spend a lot of time to separate 38 characters from a huge pile of bones. Interestingly, archaeologists have already found decapitated skeletons in the Vrable area, and then they concluded that there was a sacred meaning in such a burial. However, that burial was different from the new one. In the previous case, a separate grave was dug for each person, and in our case, the bodies of 38 people were thrown into one pit and lay at random. But a logical question arises: where are the heads? In some skeletons, the first cervical vertebrae was found, which means it was not an execution and a sacrifice. The heads were removed systematically and neatly, if one can say so about a human head. And what about the story of the Netherlands, which rests underwater? Ancient Empire tomb. The history of China is unique and very interesting. It seems to me that much more needs to be said about this amazing country, so that everyone associates archaeology not only with ancient Egypt. So, a few years ago, archaeologists found an ancient tomb in China built during the Jin Empire. This empire was located on the territory of northern China and today's far east of Russia. Workers discovered the stone tomb in 2019, 650 kilometers from Beijing. Archaeologists have learned that the tomb is decorated with figures of lions, sea anemones, flowers, and guardian spirits, one figure of a woman, the other of a man. Inside the tomb are bricks that look like carved wood, possibly without paint. The remains of 3 people were found in the tomb, 2 adults, 56 years old, and 1 child, 8 years old. In the same place, researchers found a land tag with inscriptions showing that the tomb was built between 1190 and 1196. At that time, this region was under the rule of the Jin state. The imperial family came from the Jurchens, a semi-nomadic people of northeastern China. Today, their relatives are Manchus and Evenks. In 1207, the population of the state was 53 million people. Information about the age of the tomb will help date other structures in the region. From China, we will go to Israel, where another terrible burial awaits us. Funerary decorations of a girl. Archaeologists studied finds made on Mount Scopus in Israel and found a lat coffin with valuables such as gold earrings, a hair clip, a gold pendant, gold beads, carnelian, and glass beads. These pieces of jewelry were found by archaeologist Yael Adler back in 1971, but have only now been researched and published. A team of archaeologists studied the newly found gems they considered a very valuable find. On part of the jewelry, symbols of the Roman goddess of the moon, the patroness of young girls, were found. If a girl died early, jewelry with symbols of the goddess was placed in the grave for protection in the afterlife. Other gold earrings and jewelry were found during excavations on the Mount of Olives in Jerusalem in 1975. Such burials and decorations are well known in the Roman world and allow one to draw conclusions about the population of Judea at that time. After the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem and the expulsion of the Jews, the city was settled by settlers from the Roman Empire. The burial of a young girl with her jewelry is a touching archaeological find. We can imagine how her parents or relatives put these valuables in her grave, hoping that they will help protect the girl in another world. Despite the passage of centuries, we can all understand these feelings of loss and the desire to protect your child no matter what. Thus, these archaeological finds help scientists to better understand the history and culture of the population of Judea during the period of the late Roman Empire. These decorations and burials of young girls testify to the mixed population made up of immigrants from different parts of the Roman Empire and their beliefs and rituals which they brought to the life of the city. The oldest Scottish tartan. A piece of cloth found in the Scottish Highlands in the early 1980s is the oldest surviving tartan dating back to the 16th century, a new study suggests. Tartan is a traditional Scottish plaid fabric associated with ancestral groups known as clans. The pattern was named the Glen Affric tartan after the village where it was found. The tartan is perfectly preserved thanks to the fact that it was buried in a peat bog with a low oxygen content. In Scotland, old textiles are very rare because of the soil, which is not conducive to their preservation. To determine the age of the Glen Affric tartan, the Scottish Tartan Authority commissioned dye analysis and radiocarbon testing. The researchers examined the 4 colors used and found no man-made or semi-synthetic materials indicating a date earlier than 1750s. Radiocarbon testing has indicated a period of tartan creation from 1500 to 1655. At this time, the Stuart monarchs were on the Scottish throne. Mary, Queen of Scots, and her father, James V. Tartan is not associated with high status, but rather with working-class outdoor wear. Non-noble items from the 16th century are quite rare, so this piece is an amazing find. It is believed that the oldest tartan discovered in Scotland, the Falkirk tartan, dated to the 3rd century, has a simpler jacket structure than the Glen Affric tartan. However, in this case, only a small fragment of it was found. Sanctuary of the God of War. In France, archaeologists have found a sanctuary dedicated to the god Mars from the 4th century AD. Next to it, a Roman necropolis was found with funerary items about 1,500 years old. Excavations are taking place near La Chapelle des Fougères, where traces of a necropolis and a sanctuary were found back in 1984, and archaeological research began in 2018. The sanctuary is probably dedicated to Mars, the Roman god of war. Dozens of swords and spears, presumably ritual, and a small figurine of a deity were found at the excavation site. Mars was at first the god of fertility and nature, but later became the god of war like the Greek Ares. Archaeologists have found the remains of furniture, brooches, military items, and a set of coins. The sanctuary is believed to have been in use during the early Roman period, and it was abandoned in the 4th century AD. Near the sanctuary, dwellings with household items and ceramic utensils were found. In addition, a Roman necropolis with approximately 40 burials from the late Roman period up to 5th century has been excavated. Funerary objects were found there: silver bracelets, hairpins, buckles, glass and pearl beads, ceramics, and footprints. In one burial, a dagger and horse harness with iron and bronze decorations were found. All found artifacts were sent to storage for further study. And the next find is interesting because we'll find out when drugs became popular in Europe. The oldest snack under the Colosseum. It is no secret to many that sewerage of ancient Rome has survived to this day and is still usable. Now, it is unlikely that any of you will want to study sewerage, but archaeologists have been doing this for a long time. This is one of the few ways to find out what the Romans ate in ancient times. For more than a year, they have been conducting their research under the amphitheater, and now they can confidently tell what people ate while attending gladiator fights and performances. After a long study of the sewerage under the Colosseum, scientists found traces of olives, nuts, meat, cherries, grapes, and figs, which are at least 1,900 years old. In addition to the remains of food, bones of bears, lions, dogs, and other animals were found. Most likely, these animals fought among themselves. And the creepiest thing is that people liked to look at it, and it was completely legal. In addition, they managed to find about 50 bronze coins and one very rare, about 171 years old, which was made in honor of the 10-year reign of Emperor Marcus Aurelius. The sewerage is the only place where you can find treasures such as coins, animal bones, and leftover food. If for an ordinary person all this seems insignificant, then for archaeologists and historians, these are the most valuable finds. After all, their value is not measured in monetary terms. Judging by the bones of animals, not only lions and bears took part in the battles, but also small dogs, chickens, and even pigs. Perhaps they were used as food, and it was interesting for people to watch how a hungry lion tears apart a pig and swallows small dogs. For many, the Colosseum evokes associations only with gladiators and animals, although in fact, a lot of various events took place there. Fiery performances, imitation of sea battles, and much more. The last performance at the Colosseum that has been documented took place 1,500 years ago, and around this time, the British built the first domestic bath. The strangest museum exhibit. The museum is the place where, in general, all the finds of archaeologists fall, where anyone can take a closer look at them. I will tell you about such exhibits more. The photo shows the upper body of an ancient Celt who was sacrificed almost 2,000 years ago. At the time of death, the guy was about 20 years old. They killed him rather harshly, although at that time such a death was a sign of special mercy. Before the sacrifice, his nipples were cut off. He was cut into pieces and burnt. Another thing is interesting. The guy had very well-groomed nails, which means that he was someone from the ruling elite. Severe Gauls thus sacrificed the leader when his term of office approached, and 20 years for the leader was considered the sunset of a career. This lamb on wheels is at least 150 years old. It is creepy not only by its appearance, but also by the legend that it has acquired during its stay in the museum. The staff of the Canadian Museum considers the lamb cursed and assures that they hear sounds at night, how his chariot creaks, and the watchmen go crazy with fear, turn on loud music so as not to hear how the lamb moves around the museum. Of course, this is most likely a local horror story, but this toy still looks creepy. And this is the real heart of a sheep, no longer a toy. It is completely studded with pins, nails, and needles, and this heart played a very important role. It protected its owner from enemies. To be honest, I don't quite understand how such a creepy, nasty piece of meat with pins can protect from enemies. Maybe it's because I'm not good at magic. This bone is considered ritual in Tibetan Buddhism. It's not as simple as you might think. This bone with a knob is capable of making an amazing sound, Q-ru-ru. This bone, like the previous amulet, is also capable of scaring away evil spirits. The material for its production is the human tibia bone. Buddhists believe that the bones of girls are better suited for this. Who are we to argue with Tibetan Buddhists? In order for the set to be complete, it is also necessary to have drums of 2 skulls. And at the end of the video, I would like to ask you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, leave your thumb up under the video, and write a kind comment. Thanks for the views, bye everyone!